In Guatemala, the Supreme Court of Justice cleared the way to make official the results of the June 25th elections. In Lithuania, the summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization began with a focus on the war in Ukraine and the candidates to join the warmongering alliance. In Israel, thousands take to the streets to protest against Parliament's approval of a key clause of the government's judicial overhaul package that would limit court powers. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. According to preliminary results, this Monday, Guatemala's Supreme Court of Justice cleared the way to make official the results of June 25th elections after declaring invalid the actions presented by almost a dozen of loser political parties. The Supreme Court decided to declare as inadmissible the protective appeals filed by political parties claiming irregularities in ballot counting. In addition, judges withdrew the validity of the protection appeal issued by Guatemala's highest constitutional court on July 1st, which left the electoral results in suspense. As in their opinion, the electoral authorities completed a second revision. At this point, the Supreme Electoral Court must officialize the results, assign public posts, and organize the ballot for presidency scheduled for next August 20th. In Venezuela, a group of members of the Communist Party of Venezuela requested the Supreme Court of Justice to appoint a special board to restructure this political organization. The spokesman of that faction of the Communist Party, Henry Parra, explained that they will seek justice regarding the way in which the leadership of the party directs it. Henry Parra indicated that they introduced an appeal to the Constitutional Chamber because they consider that the current leadership of the PCV is illegitimate and illegal for having been elected in a Congress where more than 80% of the members of the organizations did not participate. Parra assured that the members reject the current party's political line because it coincides with those extreme right-wing sectors that promoted the sanctions imposed by the United States against Venezuela.
Because there are many of us who have been excluded, and in the face of that, we have no choice to turn to the Supreme Justice Court for a constitutional remedy. This kidnapped 27 years old has one of the newest deja vu of the rest are people who have a lifetime in the party. The important thing is that they have a life in the party, that they have it for the sake of the party project that we represent. We are an anti-imperialist political project, and today the party policy is coinciding with the oppressive policy they have against our people. It is almost accepting that the blockage and wants to blame the government for everything that is happening in this country, and unaware that is the product of an international policy, which is the product of an international policy directed for the United States of America that has established part of our people.
In the meantime, the leadership of a sector of the Venezuelan opposition filed before the Supreme Court of Justice a constitutional appeal for the alleged irregularities in the primary process carried out by this political sector.
And it ended up developing as a totally sectarian closed process, as if they were the internal elections of a political organization. We in the Supreme Court of Justice even introduced a constitutional injunction against the primary process and against the National Commission of Primaries as a result of a series of irregularities. They went over the law. They remain outside the Constitution. They are going over the heads of the political factors, political leaders, and presidential aspirants, only to please a very small group.
In Canada, the Forest Fire Prevention Agency of Quebec announced for the first time since the end of May that there are no out-of-control wildfires in the province. Authorities say there are still 57 blazes in the southern part of the province, including 38 that are under control, while another 19 are considered contained. The agency considers a fire contained when it is no longer growing, but could regain strength. However, Environment Canada has issued an air quality alert due to wildfire smoke for regions bordering James Bay and Hudson Bay. On June 27th, Canada surpassed the non-historical figure for a total of area burned by wildfires in a season when several weeks of warm weather are still to come. Heavy rains in Brazil have displaced more than 27,000 people over the last few days. Authorities reported 2 deaths as a result of the rainfall, and officials declared an emergency in 31 cities. The municipalities of San Miguel dos Campos and Marechal Deodoro are on alert due to rivers and lakes overflowing. In view of this situation, several teams are carrying out the corresponding rescue tasks to assist those affected by the rains. At the same time, they urge the population to take the appropriate measures to protect themselves. India's government reported 29 people dead as a result of floods caused by the heavy rains affecting the country. Authorities report that more than 300 people are stranded in northern provinces of the country and in the capital city, and said that they are waiting for the rains to stop before sending a rescue helicopter. The Meteorological Service informed the rains will continue for the next few days in several areas of the north. According to official sources, the amount of monsoon rainfall in India in the first week of July is 2% higher than average. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories are coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Tuesday, the summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization began in Vilnius, Lithuania. The two-day event will have as a center the war in Ukraine and the candidates to join the military bloc. In this sense, the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, announced on the social media Twitter the entry of Sweden after the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, processed the entry to the Nordic country war alliance. Stoltenberg also proposed shortening Kiev's entry path to the bloc, skipping one of the obligatory procedures established so far, the so-called Action Plan for Accession. The proposal includes achieving full interoperability between the Ukrainian and NATO forces thanks to the support of the allies, as well as the creation of the NATO-Ukraine Council. Press reports indicate that this proposal could be blocked by the United States and Germany. The alliance has agreed to continue sending millions of dollars in weapons and ammunition to the Kiev regime.
Summit is already historic because the agreement we made yesterday will make Sweden a full member of NATO, and that will make our alliance even more capable of defending all allies. At this meeting, we will also send a clear message to Ukraine that we stand by them as long as needed, and also that we agree on the united and positive message on the path forward for Ukraine and membership for Ukraine.
The spokesperson for the International Committee of the Red Cross, Fatima Sator, condemned Washington's decision to supply cluster bombs to Ukraine. Sator considered the munitions a serious danger for the civilian population, especially children. In a comment to the agency RIA Novosti, Sator stated that cluster munitions have serious humanitarian consequences for communities for many years. She added that children can mistake them for toys and get hurt. Cluster munitions, used for the first time during World War II, can be used in rocket bombs, missiles, and artillery shells. Once released, they open up in mid-air, spreading many mini-bombs over a wide area. Specialists argue that when dispersed, these submunitions can kill civilians, in addition to the risk associated with unexploded projectiles, which pose a danger for years. On Monday, during a meeting with representatives from the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf, also known as Gulf Cooperation Council, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that cooperation between Russia and member countries of the bloc does not seek to hurt anyone. Lavrov stressed that neither Russia nor the Gulf countries had ever tried to interfere with each other's relations with third countries, which distinguishes them from a range of other relations. The top Russian diplomat described Russia's relations with Gulf countries as friendly, cooperative, and based on mutual trust, due to account of each other's interests and the desire to form consensus approaches to any issues under discussion. Set up in 1981, the GCC includes 6 countries, namely Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, and Saudi Arabia.
We welcome steps made on the normalization of Arab-Iranian relations. Saudi Arabia, as you know, renewed diplomatic relations with the Islamic Republic of Iran not long ago. On the whole, this creates a more positive atmosphere in this region. We share our partners' attitude in their search for a compromise, as well as their readiness to consider the interests of one another and all parties involved.
In addition, the Russian foreign minister stated the importance of paying attention to the conflicts in Sudan and Palestine, which have caused victims, destruction and suffering to their inhabitants.
We pay significant attention to the situation in Sudan. We are deeply concerned about the continuation of combat between subdivisions of the regular army and of the rapid support forces, bringing with it victims and destruction. We, along with our Arab partners, spoke in favor of preventing the situation from deteriorating and for swift, urgent steps to cease the fighting. We are united in considering the Palestinian question a central problem for the Middle East, and that the search for a two-state principle on an internationally recognized basis should not lead to suffering in the name of any geopolitical games.
TeleSUR English launched its own videos on the band site for you to go and revisit our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Just go to the top left corner in our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. Now, we will have a short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Israel's parliament adopted in a first reading a controversial bill that would limit court powers in a new offensive to push ahead with a judicial overhaul that has split the nation. The Knesset, the name by which the Israeli legislature is known, approved the first of the 3 readings required for the reform to enter into force. In a split decision, 64 members of Congress voted in favor of the proposal of the executive led by Benjamin Netanyahu, while 56 voted against. If approved, the rule would annul the reasonableness doctrine, which allows the Supreme Court to overturn government decisions, which, according to its opponents, undermines the balance of powers and would give unlimited power to the government. Protests erupted across Israel Tuesday, hours after Parliament's approval of a key clause of the government's judicial overhaul package. Protesters blocked roads across the country and gathered at Ben Gurion Airport near Tel Aviv, with police reporting more than 40 arrests during the morning. Traffic was also brought to a standstill by protesters along a highway near Modi'in. Near Parliament, more protesters waved the Israeli flag and banged drums, while police deployed mounted officers. Israeli protest leaders had announced a day of mobilization in anticipation of the parliamentary vote, with dozens of rallies expected across the country.
The government decided, it passed in a first reading a legislation yesterday that undermines the ability of the Supreme Court to conduct judicial review over decisions of the government, basically to make it more difficult to conduct oversight on what might be labeled in the U.S. Capricious and arbitrary decisions of elected officials. This is one chapter of a broader plan and program of the government to weaken the checks and balances.
Sudan's peace talks in Ethiopia go ahead with the international community and the Sudanese civil society, despite their refusal to participate by the conflict-torn country's government. The East African Regional Bloc, IGAD, had invited the warring factions in Sudan to a meeting in Ethiopia's capital on Monday. However, neither of them attended the talks personally, although the Rapid Support Forces sent a representative to the meeting, which is led by Kenya, South Sudan, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. Sudan's foreign ministry said on Monday that its delegation would not participate in dialogue until its request to remove Kenya as chair of the talks was met. The ministry accuses Kenyan President William Ruto of being partial in the negotiations. Since mid-April, around 3,000 people have been killed after fighting erupted between Sudan's rival generals. Nearly 3 million people have reportedly been forced to flee their homes.
We know that the political leaders present in this meeting are by no means representative of the groups. but we believe that an open process, an inclusive process, will bring on board all political actors, civilian groups, civil society groups, to be part of this great effort.
The parties to the violent conflict will have to silence the guns and immediately put in place an unconditional and indefinite ceasefire.
Sudan is probably the most difficult place in the world at the moment for the delivery of humanitarian assistance. And the problem that arises is because of the lack of good access and safe passage and safe corridors.
On Monday, 6 people, including 3 children, have been killed and 1 injured in a stabbing at a kindergarten in southern China, according to an official. According to a spokeswoman for the city government, the attack took place in Yangjiang, in Guangdong province. The suspect, a 25-year-old man with the family name Wu, said he acted out of revenge after being harassed by a student at the same school. China has seen a number of stabbing attacks in schools in recent years, despite government efforts to improve security. Last August, 3 people were killed after an attack in southern Jiangxi province that also targeted a nursery school. The 4th edition of the International Oil, Gas and Energy Fair concluded on Monday at the Damascus Exhibition Center, an event that is part of the Syrian state management aim at recovering this sector after long years of war. Our correspondent here in Vilnius has the details.
The fair, entitled SIR Petro 2023, was attended by 55 local and international companies specialized in the oil industry, exploration operations, drilling, extraction, refining and marketing of oil and natural gas, as well as renewable energy companies, services, transportation, equipment, repair and maintenance, studies, consulting, occupational safety, geology and mineral wealth.
At this fair, we have presented the plan prepared by the Syrian Ministry of Oil and Mineral Resources for investment in the oil, gas, and energy sectors, and we assure you that this plan opens the doors to all friends, brothers, and allies to invest in these fields and contribute to the reactivation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of oil and gas facilities destroyed or sabotaged by terrorist groups.
The large participation of foreign companies in this fair, including Iranian companies, indicates the strong interest of Syrian-friendly countries in tackling the blockade and helping to revive and develop Syria's oil industry.
Companies from Iran, China, United Arab Emirates, Great Britain, Belarus, Algeria, Yemen, Iraq, and Lebanon marked a notable presence in this edition of the fair, a platform where officials, specialists, and experts in the oil industry sector at the local, regional, and international levels, in addition to exchanging experiences, ideas, and information on modern technology in the field of oil, agreed to activate the contracts signed with a view to improving the prospects for the energy sector in Syria.
We urge the participants in the fair to join efforts and help us to overcome the Western coercive measures that limit our working capacities, and we hope that the private sector, together with the Ministry of Petroleum, can activate the agreement signed with friendly countries to rehabilitate this sector of vital importance for the national economy.
This oil and gas fair is especially important in the current circumstances that the country is going through, because it constitutes a platform for the exchange of experiences with foreign companies and learning about the latest technologies in the oil and gas industry, besides drawing businessmen and foreign capital to invest in this important sector.
Before 2011, Syria produced more than 380,000 barrels of crude oil per day, a figure that is currently reduced to only 80,000, 66,000 of which are plundered by the invading U.S. troops. This fair, as well as other similar ones, are part of a plan launched by the Syrian authorities with the aim of activating the oil sector and overcoming the million-dollar losses it suffered due to the war, the blockade, the occupation, and the looting by the United States and its related militias.
TeleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
At this, we have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website, TeleSUREnglish.net. Also join us on social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.